from London. She's a professor at the Bartlett School of Architecture. Penelope, we're very happy that you're here, although virtually. You can share your screen. Hopefully everything works. We didn't have a chance to test.
Yes, let me check. It's a great pleasure to be able to contribute to the conference, but I'm devastated that I cannot be there with all of you. It has been really hard watching from a distance. So yeah, we'll start with a kind of first presentation of where I position the work. So although I'm an architect and therefore trained to think spatially through architectural drawing, my practice, like many of the participants here, is removed from the design and construction of buildings. Instead, I'm interested in how drawing, making, and film can be applied as a research method to think through ideas and analyze work not only in architecture, but also in other disciplines such as fine art, cinema, and most recently, medieval studies. So blurring the distinction between two fields of architectural endeavor, drawing and making in terms of the architect as a designer, and theoretical research in terms of the architect as writer, my work explores the potential of design as history and theory. An earlier practice-led major research project appears in my monograph, Marcel Duchamp and the Architecture of Desire, where I employ design, drawing, and making, the tools of the architect, to perform an architectural analysis of Duchamp's final enigmatic assemblage, given first the waterfall, second the illuminating gas. This practice-led investigation serves as a research methodology able to grasp tacit knowledge contained within the work, and which I argue is inaccessible through just textual analysis. With this novel reading of Duchamp's ideas and methods, I aim to add to, but also challenge, other art historical interpretations. Additionally, however, my research tackles the essence of spatial representation and questions a universal Cartesian understanding of space, inspired by Duchamp's self-confessed view of himself as a defroqué Cartesian. Today, I would like to discuss my more recent transdisciplinary research project, City of Ladies, which aims to introduce and promote the work of medieval author Christine de Pizan to an architectural audience for the first time. In her celebrated text, The Book of the City of Ladies, written in 1405, Christine describes the construction of an imaginary city, a female utopia built and inhabited by women. Her work has been seen as a proto-feminist manifesto, conflating the act of building with collecting and rewriting stories of notable female figures to erect a thesis against misogyny. So I will first introduce Christine and the recent discovery regarding the architectural structure of her book, followed by an admittedly very fast presentation of my design-led response to her work. So who was Christine? Born in Venice in 1364, she moved to Paris as a young child when her father joined the court of King Charles V as a royal astrologer and physician. She was married happily at the age of 15, but the sudden deaths of her father and husband led to a widowed Christine to take up writing professionally to support her family at the age of 25. At first, her writing was devoted to lyric poetry. When she instigated a very public literate controversy, the quarrel over the Romance of the Rose in 1401, in a series of letters, Christine protested against Jean de Meun's popular French poem and insisted that it was misogynistic, vulgar, and conveying immoral views which were slanderous to women. In the Romance of the Rose's illuminations, architecture becomes an entrapment of women, or even worse, an expression of sexual violence. Christine's conception of the Book of the City of Ladies is a direct corrective response to this text, but I argue that her empowering architectural iconography is also an antidote to the vulgarity of its offensive imagery. Her growing notoriety as a result of this public debate led to further commissioned work for primarily royal patrons. This is well beyond the scope of this talk, but Christine's work needs to be understood in connection to the turbulent times of the 100 Years' War and the inner conflicts of the royal family. Her architectural allegory is not only highly political, but also diplomatic in its support of the Queen as a regent against King Charles VI's uncles, who were claiming the throne after he became unfit to rule due to bouts of mental illness. Inspired by Dante, Christine's text begins as a dream vision taking place in her study. Distraught by the overwhelming negative portrayal of women in male writers' books, she falls asleep and is suddenly awakened by the arrival of three virtues: reason, rectitude, and justice. They announce that she has been chosen to build a city to protect women and take turns to assist her with a particular task. The portrayal of each of the three tasks appears in a different illumination, or histoire, as these images were called at the time, adorning the first page of each chapter. Reason helps Christine to set the foundations, rectitude to erect the high temples, palaces, and houses, and justice to embellish the city with gold. This division matches the definition of the word architectus and her work as it appears in Isidore of Seville's encyclopedia, which was a standard medieval writer compendium. Isidore, paraphrasing and simplifying Vitruvius, defines three parts in the art of building in Latin: dispositio, laying the foundations; constructio, raising the height of the buildings; and venustas, embellishment. This is not a coincidence, and during my research I discovered that, according to architectural historian Nicolas Pevsner, Christine is the first writer to introduce the word architect in French. She does so to describe the merits of King Charles V, who was a builder king, in one of her earlier texts. She uses the term architecteur as a translation of Vitruvius' Latin term architectus, after a long hiatus of the term becoming neglected, forgotten, and misused during the Middle Ages. Christine's conception of the iconographic program, but also of the structure of her book of the City of Ladies, is based, therefore, on the visual enactment of her invention of a word, and this word is the word architect. If Pevsner is correct, this is the first instance of the word appearing handwritten in her hand in French, which I was able to locate by scouring through Christine's digitized manuscripts held at the Vatican and in Paris. So Christine's literary construction in the Book of the City of Ladies is unique in its embodiment of the term architecture, and more so by its performance by the exclusively female characters. She deftly uses the term to promote an intellectual relationship with building, while simultaneously claiming the empowering act of physical construction for women. The three virtues become Christine's Trinity alter ego, with whom she engages in an inner dialogue. Through this allegorical trope, she is able to articulate the complex interplay between self-doubt and her decisive, often polemical, defense of women. Looking closely, the figure assisting Christine throughout is an amalgam of the three virtues. Her clothing references the attire of a queen, but is also perhaps an impersonation of architecture, passing all knowledge to her disciple, Christine the architect. City of Ladies is a research project that aims to reframe Christine's work with an architectural theory and design context for the first time. I have been extremely lucky to work with an amazing research assistant, John Cruz. Our research builds upon existing scholarship on the relationship between image and text in Christine's work. It proposes a spatial remodeling of the illuminations and an innovative, design-led enacting of the architectural and urban allegory. Through an embodied act of drawing and a construction of a series of interpretive artifacts, We combine medieval drafting techniques, gilding in gold and silver on vellum, with digital craft and film to directly respond to the architectural content of Christine's work through design. We focus on the underexplored description of the making of the city in the text, but perhaps most importantly, on its depiction in the accompanying illuminations. The aim is to claim the significance of Christine's message for the history of architecture and to inspire young architects today, but we are also in search of a way of projecting it into the far future. The work was shown in an exhibition at Domobile Gallery in January 2020, which comprised a table installation and a digital film that reconstructed the manuscript both spatially and materially and allowed a blossoming of the pictorial city from 2 dimensions into 3. When they first appear, the 3 allegorical female figures bring Christine 3 gifts: a mirror, a ruler, and a vessel, a triad of measuring devices which they urge her to employ in the design and construction of the city. Through a process of poetic remaking, we embarked on a design interpretation of these objects into material metaphors, a set of guiding principles for a future city. Reason brings a mirror, a device for measuring self-worth, which Christine will need to plan the city. Our translation of this metaphorical mirror portrays binocular vision as an alternative visual matrix embedded in the body, a female vision against the male sharpness of linear perspective. It references the importance of self-knowledge and the value of the female point of view, literally and metaphorically, and Reason's table is a dressing table. Rectitude presents a ruler, a yardstick of truth that separates right from wrong, which Christine will use to design the interior of the city. Many distance units are based on human body parts, such as the cubit, the fathom, and the foot, but these measures are always based on the male body. Our proposed ruler is a direct imprint of female hands. It helps design a city made for female human bodies and their needs, and Rectitude's table is a drawing table. Finally, Justice offers Christine a vessel of gold, a container measuring weight or volume, able to calculate and distribute portions of fortune for each individual to embellish the city. Our interpretation is a complex glass-blown hourglass receptacle, measuring time through mass and promoting long-term thinking. And Justice's table is a dining table. The tables are laid with sheets of vellum. In medieval times, before the use of paper, manuscripts were handwritten and illuminated on vellum pages. Vellum is an extremely durable writing and drawing surface made out of animal skin, which was also used for architectural drawing. The sheets of vellum in my work become drawing surfaces carrying significant diagrams and markings. I use the painstaking process of gilding, following medieval techniques with silver, gold, and white gold leaf to mark the pure white surface. The marks select and produce important details from the illuminations and define the positions of the artifacts on the tables. This digital animation reveals the characteristic translucency of the material and how light catches on the gilding. From the start of the project, I saw the sheets of vellum as abstract maps of an ambiguous spatial habitation. The marks follow the symmetry of the animal, defined by the overall shape and the oily parts of the skin, which derive from the pressure on the spine, but are also more organic, following the natural curvature of the skin and its tendency to curl. All 3 skins feature a circle, a reference point at the top by the neck, which are used as a pivot to digitally superimpose these backlit images of all 3 skins. The network of marks forms an unexpected constellation, a map of an yet uncharted territory, the imaginary city. After completing this first stage of the project, I was surprised to discover a precedent that closely resembles my drawing of this allegorical map. These are examples of the earliest surviving maritime navigation maps known as Portland charts. Drawn on whole skins of vellum, like the table covers in the City of Ladies, they were developed following the invention of the magnetic compass during Christine's time and feature windrose networks of rum lines representing the direction of the winds. My composite map became the basis for a new drawing prepared for a symposium and exhibition entitled Cartographies of the Imagination, organized by Sayan Skandaraya and Kirsty, who you heard talking earlier today. New gilding on a full-scale print on paper this time draws out specific marks and patterns, creating a contrast with the background. The drawing constitutes a speculative cartography for exploring female spatial imagination and sets the allegorical coordinates towards the future feminist utopian city. The most recent stage of the research, supported by a BA Liverhome grant, focuses on a comparative study of all 5 known authorial manuscripts of Christine's text containing illuminations held in libraries in Paris, London, and Brussels. All images are attributed to a single illuminator, or more precisely, a single illuminator workshop, which is known as the Master of the City of Ladies. The workshop noted for the particular attention to scenes of daily city life, domestic interiors, and original approach to color, was prolific during this period, executing illuminations not only for Christine, but also other writers and patrons. The main driver of the research is the definition of Christine's creative role in the conception and arrangement of the iconography, which will need to be the subject of a different talk at another time. Due to COVID-19 restrictions, we were unable to visit the actual manuscripts, but instead engaged in a thorough excavation of the high-resolution digitized images. By removing the figures, we tried to bring to the foreground the architectural features, but also observed how the nearly identical depiction of the female characters suggests the existence of a template, a model book that Christine might have composed in collaboration with her master. This could be similar to the type of drawings appearing in Villard de Honnecourt 13th century sketchbook. The sketchbook also contains architectural details, and Villard de Honnecourt is considered as an itinerant architect. However, more recently, this view has been contested, as the drawings in the sketchbook more readily match the work of a manuscript illuminator. The architectural details may have been used for constructing images of buildings rather than built architecture. The benefit of working with high-resolution digital images is that it allows a diving into the illuminations and inhabitation of the pictorial architecture. To isolate the architectural details and bring them to the foreground, we engage in a subtractive form of the drawing, removing the figures and replacing them with flat areas of digital color that match the adjacent hues. The process leaves behind ghost images, accentuating a sense of absence. Through this close negative and repeated redrawing of the different versions of the same theme, the process became an excavation, leading to a sense of discovery of a ruin. The next stage was to superimpose all 5 images, creating a ghostly image. Searching for the depth contained in the representation, we performed different displacement map readings. Here are a few versions. The resulting model thickens the surface of the representation, creating an ambiguous terrain, the additive residue of a historical pictorial site, hosting Christine's transition from writer to architect and builder. The lack of tactility in our encounter with the manuscript images led to a wish to touch the image, combined with a determination to use the Bartlett's new color 3D printer. we embarked on a trial and error process of physically printing the resulting terrain of the composite image. A gift from vision to touch, the resulting relief is enlarged to the size of a tile or a tablet, existing recto and verso. Moving between the physical and the digital, the work exists in time and in matter. My research by design is an enactment that allows an exploration of history through drawing and making. This methodology allows me to embody Christine de Pizan, the author, and the illuminator draftswoman, and her splitting into fictional personas, the commissioning and guiding virtues of reason, rectitude, and justice, which coalesce as a definition of proto-feminist architecture, and Christine, the architect. The study of Christine's texts written more than 600 years ago creates a stark realization that even today, her desire for a city by and for women remains unfulfilled. Our cities have been almost entirely conceived and constructed by men, primarily for men. So I would like to end with a provocation. At a time when humanity is facing survival challenges, perhaps as a direct result of the unfettered growth of our man-made cities, could Christine's book conceal a prescient allusion that the solution might lie in the imagination of an underrepresented side of humanity, a group that has not yet been in a position to conceive and construct its own version of the city and to propose better, more sustainable and visionary urban futures for all genders. Thank you.
Question from Perry.
Hi, Penelope. I wondered, amongst many other things about the work, how many cities you could imagine Christine's city holding if there's a feminist point of view, which is articulated through your beautiful work and the positioning of the work. I wonder, could it be Italo Calvino's invisible cities and hold a multitude of cities? Or do you think the predilections and the kind of ethical positioning that you've taken with the work there's just room, let's say, for her city? Or is it a city which could hold just multiple cities in play, let's say, that carried other kinds of value structures? And
I should admit that I can't hear very well. I don't know if you can hear me, but the sound, I think that the sound doesn't really come from the microphone as such. I think it's the sound in the room, if I'm not mistaken. But I think that what I heard, Perry, is as to whether this might lead to the imagining and construction of different cities.
Parallel worlds in the same city, not separate cities, let's say. Maybe you still can't hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complex, because the whole idea of the city is mainly an allegory, and there have been other scholars arguing that the city is an entirely imaginary construct, and it's a place where Christine invites female readers to join in an intellectual space. But at the same time, I think she was recognizing the importance of architecture as an expression of power within that society. And but also what is really poignant is that this claim to architecture as a representation of a female intellectual space is something that even today is not something that we have there is space still today to start defining what that means. Another part of the work is going back and starting to question what are the origin points, these three objects, again, working on a metaphorical level, but very object related at the same time, positions an idea of where do we start if we're going to think of a different way of thinking about space, architecture, and the city. Maybe we need to start even questioning the matrix of where such thinking happens. And then the mirror becomes the visual system, the ruler becomes the measuring system, and the vessel becomes the value system. Something that I haven't really even begun to consider is whether there is a potential there to start conceiving of a city, a real city of the future, which as a task is too large.
Are there any? I have a few. I'll try to speak in both microphones so everyone can hype it out. At the beginning of the presentation, she showed the installation unfolding, and we had these beautiful animations throughout, and we saw hands manipulating the objects. And I have a question, because you said it's going to be shown in a gallery, and because there's a tactility to the. So I'm looking there, and you're right here. Sorry. There's a tactility to the work, and also by showing it unfolding like this, there's a presentation of it that kind of asks for the body to surround it or come into contact with it. So I just have a very straightforward question on how you kind of fold that back into like a gallery space, so that it's not necessarily, is it seen as an object, is something that you manipulate as well.
You mean the potential performative?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's something that was part of the conception of what you actually do with these objects, and is there a potential for changing their positions and inviting an audience as well to actually manipulate the positions. So that's something that was part of the thinking, and actually I showed this two composite images with me moving the different elements, and they have different positions on the table that can be moved. But the idea was that there might be a kind of staged performance as well that might have then a meaning in the way that it's what happens around the table. Another little animation that I have that I didn't show today, but I have shown in the past, is the setting of the table as well, which is how the table is set and the kind of ritual for setting the table, and what is the meaning of this sequence of different actions. But yeah, it's something that the exhibition happened in January 2020, which was just a few weeks before the world collapsed. So ideas of what could happen with that piece of work were put in the freezer, or actually in mine and Nat's office for like 2 years. The tables are still stored there.
Do we have another quick comment, observation? I think thank you so much, Penelope, for joining us.